Welcome to the Party Pals, GRC MAFIA. We are here tonight to break down barriers and foster collaboration and just building community working towards a more secure future. It's all about learning and growing together. I'm B-Dubs, and tonight's going to be really exciting. We have PBO, and we're going to talk about third-party risk management. But before that, we have a few guidelines and stuff. We have, after the presentation, we'll open up the stage to anyone who wants to join in. We just ask that you definitely turn on your mic, but your video is not required. Ask questions in the chat or on stage. Share your personal LinkedIn. The best place to do that is our Discord, because you can't post links and stuff in the YouTube channel. But yeah, don't share anything that you don't want to be public, and don't be rude, don't spam or advertise. But yeah, let's move over here. We have PBO ready for us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Give me one in the chat if y'all can hear me. Give me one in the chat if y'all can hear me. Shout out to B-Dubs, taking care of me, making sure I had the link. So, people be getting lost. I appreciate it. So everybody give me one in the chat if you can hear me.
Yep, I see a one.
That's cool.
I'll let you take it over.
I appreciate it. Ping me in the back if you need anything from me. I'm old hat at this. So we're going to give y'all a little quick backstory. Is I was looking at Study GRC, and I happened to see if they were going live a certain day, and I saw I was presenting today on Thursday. So shout out to Christo. But I always tell everybody if they need a speaker or if they need me to step in, I'm more than willing or able to do that. Most people know me in the chat. Long story short, my name is Professor Black Ops. I've been in IT for 30 plus years. I've been in cybersecurity for 15. My two big feats, I work for DOD doing programming and security and really federal compliance for, once again, 10 years. And I work for the state of Indiana as consultant, Department of Revenue doing IRS. And I did risk assessment for any software coming into the agency. Right there, you see NIST 800-53. Any software that's touching your network, you have to do a risk assessment per the IRS. So once again, if y'all got any questions, chats, or statements, just put them in the chat box. We can always pivot. So I'm about to get started. Once again, I want to welcome everybody to the chat and what's up. There's some familiar faces. R Squared, 8-Bit in the house, Cam, Regine. Once again, R Squared, AB, S Cole, So once again, thanks for joining me. You know how we do it. Just put in your questions in the chat. We're about to get started. So everybody know I do this. So really, the RA family's in there if I can find it. I went for a walk. It was 90 degrees. There it is, risk assessment. So really, that's the family we're gonna really focus on tonight. And actually, we're really just gonna touch on it. There's a lot of pre stuff before you start digging into federal compliance. Also in there, part of that is assessment. CA's in there. System service and acquisition. Once again, before you acquire any service or systems, you got to do a risk assessment on it. So those kind of the three big families that kind of roll into, once again, SR2 with the supply chain. Really, those families kind of roll in with the risk assessment. Once again, there's some of the subfamilies: security categorization, risk assessment, vulnerability and monitoring, technical surveillance, risk response. Privacy is real big coming. That's part of risk assessment. And we're going to talk about what departments does what. When I worked for a big company, we actually had a separate team that did privacy, GDPR, CCPA. So that's really one part of GRC. But once again, we're going to talk about the different departments and how they feed into your risk assessment. A lot of times when you work for a small company, you're going to do all those departments rolled into one. So we're going to talk about them breaking them up. In a smaller company, you kind of doing it all. So once again, third-party types of risks vendors may be introduced. Outside relationships are risky. Contractual relationships, third-party relationships can introduce various types of risk, including cybersecurity risk. I think that's the one we think about in our industry, really what we focus on. I think we silo a lot into that. Once I got a little more senior leadership, then I was hanging out with the financial department and legal. They really focus on operational risk. Cybersecurity really flows up into operational risk because the operations usually running on computers, moving data around. So if the computer system's not working right, that really rolls up to operational risk. Then the part two from a GRC, compliance. You see HIPAA violations. Most people know I do FedRAMP, NIST 800-53, CMMC, SOC 2 is part of that, right? But once again, if you fail in compliance, that's really operational risk, right? If we're supposed to do HIPAA and we fail at it and we get fined, that once again rolls back up into the operation. And a lot of times, shout out to Chris and B-Dubs, they talk about enterprise risk. Enterprise risk really rolls up into operational risk, right? Cybersecurity is kind of a silo. Compliance is kind of silo, and they roll up into operational risk. Let's see. Let me see if there's any questions in there as I ramble. Let's keep rolling. I got too many screens in the background. We're going to get to it. The other part of that, too, is financial risk. Usually when you talk about enterprise risk, it's usually ran by the CFO a lot of times when I'm in those meetings. Then strategic risk and reputational risk. I think IT cybersecurity really drilling down to reputational risk. If you get hacked or, Kaseas and all your data spewed all over the internet, right? A lot of people think their reputation is going to be damaged. You see it right there, reputational risk. Data breaches caused by weak third-party security can exponentially affect organizational reputation, impact customers' perception of your company, and even if your organization didn't cause the breach, right? So if a third party cause you a breach, a lot of times they just remember the company they gave their data to. And a lot of times reputational risk is cool, but there's so many companies that's been hacked now. I don't know how much reputational risk is in there. I just, once again, it's not if you've been hacked, but when you're going to be hacked. So I don't know. I think that reputational risk is kind of, I want to say, almost dying down, which is sad, right? We just so used to getting hacked. And once again, strategic risk and financial risk. The strategic risk, third-party relationship, termination or disruption will affect operations, which can halt process towards organizational goal. And failure to meet internal objectives can impact your strategies, which put projects completion at risk, right? So those are kind of the main risk categories that third-party risk is going to feed into. I think a lot of times, once again, I was that way. When you talk about cybersecurity risk, you think at it from an IT perspective. But when you're at a large corporation, once again, that rolls up into your operational risk, your financial risk, and your strategic risk, right? So, but going back to the other slide, operational risk, right? Because each one of your operations or business processes is part of the operation. Most of your business process again runs on IT solutions now, third party solutions in the cloud. You running a service, an outside service. So that's kind of where the third party risk can consist. And there was a lot of big time hacks that were caused by third party. And I think, especially in this R5, the supply chain got expanded and the risk assessment got expanded. They want once again they want to make sure you validating your third parties that's bring you software and services, and a lot of those services once again are in the cloud. Once again, organizations are concerned about the risk associated with the products and service that may potentially contain malicious functionality or counterfeits or vulnerabilities due to poor manufacturing development practice within the supply chain. A lot of times when they talk about supply chain, a lot of times they talk about physical, where you're getting your PC ones, where you're getting your servers, where's your cloud vendors getting your services from. And coming up, I kind of got my 12 favorite things to look at in risk assessment, and making sure you're not getting counterfeit hardware and software is one of my favorite checks. We're gonna look at that coming up. These risks associated with enterprise, decreased visibility into understanding how the technology is acquired, developed, integrated, process and procedures. And I got a slide because sometimes your third party has third parties and their third parties has third parties. So how do you get visibility into that chain, and how do you control that? We got a slide coming in, and we're going to once again dig into that a little more. And here's the slide. So the first level right there, acquiring enterprise, that's us with the big I. We got our suppliers and our externals, but they have suppliers. Right there, it gets a little darker, right? So if I assess the supplier and external, and they got, do I get to assess them? Then if their suppliers got sub suppliers, right, it's real dark, right? So how do you once again make sure you understand the connection linkage of your suppliers, right? A lot of times we're going to talk about that coming up. For the big contracts that are over once again HIPAA and high trust, this supplier, if they have any suppliers, a lot of times they got to let us know, right? So that's how you get visibility in there. But, and we're going to dig in to see where that green line is. That's a fine line, because if I put a lot of contractual requirements, right, I'm actually running their GRC process and procedures. If they get hacked, they could blame me, right? So we got to be careful how many requirements we give them without actually taking control over their organization. Long story short, I used to get in trouble with that at DOD. So that's why I'm real hesitant, right? So that's where we're going to talk about that. That's why you got to get your legal staff in there, right? You want to give them requirements, but you don't want to run their organization. If you run their organization and they get hacked, then you're responsible, right? So there's kind of a fine line in that. So, and we're going to definitely talk a little bit about that. Once again, I got about 10 or 11 slides. Mr. Whitlock said he had a few questions for me, so I want to make sure I be respectful of Study GRC's time. But once again, that's real huge, is visibility into your supplier. And there was one Log4j that happened that got everybody hacked. So I was working at a client. We had suppliers. They were running software. We didn't know they had Log4j in their software because we didn't have visibility. It was actually running in our data center. When we scanned for it, it happened to come up and like, oh, now we got to patch it. So once again, you got to figure out what your suppliers are running. So if there's a hack on that particular software, you'll be able to know and understand it. Excuse me. Once again, throw any questions. So we're going to kind of dig down into that. Supplier security requirements, physical and cybersecurity process are evaluated doing a supplier vetting. The vetting is the risk assessment, meaning a couple includes the process requirements and supplier agreements, contractual language. And we're definitely going to talk about that from a legal perspective, because you can do questionnaires, security exhibits. If they're not in the supplier agreements, then they're not legally binding to do that. And that's one thing I used to miss out on. Okay, I'm doing all this great security, but if it's not in our legal contractual requirements, they really don't have to do it. They do it one time, but then there's no legal obligation for them to keep doing that. Key process evaluated for suppliers and vetting include security governance, manufacturing operational security, software engineering, asset management, incident management, transportation of security, physical environment, personnel. Once again, I got my list of what I looked at, and that's part of the list. So these are things you check as part of your risk assessment. Like when I was doing work with the IRS, we would move paper files to our warehouse. My boss, who's ex NSA, we're going to interview him, transport security, because if something happened to those tax returns, we would be held personally liable, and that would be a breach if somebody stole the car with the tax returns behind them. A lot of times we get so enamored with the tech and computer part, there's a lot of physical things we need to check depending on how your data is being moved. Let me see if there's any questions in there while we ramble. Once again, welcome. I appreciate that. Let's see. My man Chris got a question in the chat. I'm going to jump to it. What's the best practicing for extending personnel screening policy to third? I appreciate you. Policies to third-party contractors and their staff, especially those with privileged access. That's actually an excellent question. So a lot of times, especially in the federal space, you have to do a background check. And one thing is called OFAC, and inside OFAC, you got to have an employment background check, felony background check, and if you owe IRS, they check your credit, which I thought was weird. So those are the kind of checks you do. And if you're a privileged user, especially in the FedRAMP, when I was at DOD, I was actually on a production box, but I couldn't change anything. My boss, who I'm going to interview, he actually had a polygraph a lie detector test. So depending on the level of data, you're a privileged user. Now, most private businesses, you just go do a background check felony. But depending on the level of data, you can actually get there to a little higher than that. So let me keep going. I know Chris got a couple more questions. Like I said, I got a few more slides. This is an example of one. Companies have identified various practices. Focus on brand integrity rather than brand protection. Supports the life cycle threat model to identify, address vulnerabilities in supply chain. And one thing we always forgotten, one of my colleagues actually did something. We had a vendor, I really liked them. I passed a security check. She happened to go look at them. The company was in bankruptcy, right? So you need to check the financial health of a company, right? So we end up doing business with them, right? But you need to make sure if they're in good standings with the Better Business Bureau, and make sure they're a viable, ongoing business, right? I was so enamored with the technology and the FIPS and this and that. I forgot to check if the company was in good standing, meaning financially, right? So procurement and sourcing are developed jointly, and we're going to talk about that. The different teams: IT, security, engineering, operational personnel, and sourcing. So I got a slide talking about the four main departments risk assessment works and kind of who does what. But once again, that's for a larger company. A smaller company, we're going to roll all those up probably into one. RPs, standard security terms and conditions, and our request for RPs, which stands for request for proposal. If you work for the state or government, if they're going to do a service, hardware, software, they got to send it off to bid. That's RP. So the company's they answer your questions, right? Are you FIPS? Are you NIST? Right? So that's part of the RP vetting of the business before you let them bid on work. And the other way around, I work for companies that bid on federal work. So I used to get the RPs, read through them, and make sure we can do what the RPs are asking. And two, I got a slide coming up, and we're going to kind of break down what department does what. Assets or business owner must be formally accept responsibility exceptions for security guidelines. And that's part of my slide too, is anything you do from a security perspective that deviates from the enterprise, the business owner has to accept or reject it, right? It's not, people always think security has this thing that it can do unilaterally. That's incorrect. If it's going to make money, a lot of times they're going to do it without your formal approval of it, right? There's a lot of things I didn't want to do because I thought it was not as secure as it was. But if it's a $10 million, my job is to work with the security team to make it get secure, right? Do we need more money? Do we need some? What do we need to make this secure so we can do this business, right? So I think a lot of people think it's unilaterally yes or no from IT or security or GRC, and it's not that way. Since many risk assessments depends on supplier self-evaluation, number of companies employ on-site verification and validation. Some companies cross-train. Yeah, and that's yes or no. It is true that they do self-evaluation. Shout out to my man Dave. He's not here. That's where your SOC 2s come in. That's where your SOC 2 type 2 comes in. Your NIST or your CMC certification from a third party. They validate these things so they're not doing self-evaluation. Now I get a little nervous because the company pays these people to do these evaluations, right? So sometimes they have a little sway, but a lot of times that's where the SOC 2 type 2 comes in because that's supposed to be a third party organization doing that. So that kind of dissuades that. So here, let's see. There's some of the departments coming up we're going to talk about and kind of what they do or not do. Shout out to my man Dave. I just mentioned him. So a lot of people I don't trust to do the SOC 2, but shout out to my man Dave. I know he does excellent work. So if Dave sign off on their SOC 2 type 2, then I'll take it, right? So a lot of times when you do a risk assessment, if they got a SOC 2 type 2, right, that validates a lot of I call it low-hanging fruit. Let's see, I'm going back and picking up any questions. This is the best practice. What is the most common mistakes organizations make when sharing data with vendors? Not securing it. I see people email stuff in a regular email. I'm like, dude, you just email me your findings and what's wrong. So sharing data, not securing it, not giving it its proper level of data classification, which it's their data. If they want to email it, I'm cool with it. I was working with a big company doing some IRS audits and they sent it in regular email. I was shocked, right? Because there's a lot of secure emails. Shout out to if you run an Office 365, you can actually secure it, do a link. You're not sending an email, you just upload it to their website. So there's a lot of ways to see, but just not protecting their findings and stuff. We ask them. Because a lot of times you put in how to actually break into your company. What's your level of encryption? What's your subnetting? What databases you're using? What's your server? A lot of times you have version numbers in there, right? So I remember at the banner typically rolls at the bottom. now this is PG, AP, PG. This PG, this PG. Let's see. I think we're rolling. So let's go. So when I work for big companies and we do RPs or risk assessment, these are the departments we work with. So say we're GRC, that's kind of what we live in. We're usually talking about GRC from a corporate level, right? So the company says we do encryption, it's got to be FIPS 140-3, right? We do breach notifications, we need to be notified in 72 hours or less, right? We do that from a corporate level, from a GRC perspective. But a lot of times if you're doing work or internal work, they might say to connect to this particular third-party AWS, it's got to be an API call. It needs to be SHA-256. That's not going to be in the corporate policies or procedures, right? So who would take that? That's going to either be the IT teams because they do specific things for calling different products that they developed inside their infrastructure. So if we do LexisNexis, that's common among companies. They check your credit is how are we connected with them? They might say do a SAML call. That's going to be nowhere in corporate procedures or policies, right? How that authentication is. So that actually would go to the IT teams. But GRC, a lot of times we quarterback it. We say, okay, this is in the RP or this is part of the risk assessment for us to get that type of data. How are you protecting that IT teams? Then they say, well, we're doing this and that. I'm not qualified to do that. That's going to be the security SOC team, right? Because now you're delving into the specifics of how that service is going to be called. That's not going to be in GRC. That's going to be in the security and SOC. We see some protocols. Are they doing open source? Are they doing SAML or open ID? Are they doing data commingling and other tenants? Now I might ask that question. Encryption, how are you destroying your backups? Right? I might say, okay, you need to destroy your backups, but Are you encrypting them and throwing away the key? Are you shredding physical backups, right? A lot of times that's going to be a security questionnaire by the security team. Then the privacy, shout out to Chris and Dwight. They talk about GDPR, CPA. GRC a lot of times don't handle that. That's either going to be legal or procurement when they start talking about GDPR. Because GDPR is such done at a legal term a lot of times. GRC usually don't touch the GDPR, CCPA, and the New York DFR, which is the New York version of CCPA. We really need a federal standard for privacy, but that's a different stream and a different. Then legal is MSA, Master Service Agreement, End User License Agreement, DPA. I put trust centers a scam. Everybody has trust centers. Shout out to our favorite person. She was developing a trust center, but I asked legal one time. I was like, "Well, if that trust center is not in our Master Service Agreement, can we tie those together?" They're like, "No, they can change that anytime they want, right?" So just because you're doing all these tests and these are security exhibits, if they're not any legal documentation saying that third party needs to do it, right, then you're just doing it for show. I wouldn't say you're doing it for show. The time you're doing it, point in time is good. But next year, if you don't have it legally required to do it, they don't have to do it. Right. So I think that's a lot of things that I used to miss as part of that. So once again, you got compliance and GRC. That's usually done at a corporate level. This is what they sign on it. We're doing NIST or RS Pub 1075. But once again, the development teams could say, we couldn't do it. We got mitigating controls, or we actually did something more secure. So depending on what type of risk assessment is, sometimes I can answer a lot of questions, but sometimes I got to shoot that to the development team to actually figure out how they're developing it. Just go to my shout out to me. Yeah. Yeah. But so those are the teams that you need to work with. Now, in a smaller company, a lot of times I might do compliance, and a lot of times I do security because I got that background, right? So I understand ports and protocols, firewalls, which I got coming up, which once again, the things I usually ask off the top. But once again, from a third party assessment, to really have a complete assessment, you really need to be touching all these items, right? If you're leaving any of these items out, you opening yourself up for maybe some issues. Now, let's really wind back. Is a lot of times when you're doing a service, because you're just taking a default service, you're doing a click through. They're not gonna let you touch any of these items. AWS is not gonna let you touch any of these unless you spend $2 or $3 million. You're gonna go on their website. You're gonna click and say I accept, and you're gonna get what you're gonna get, right? So, but once you get to that next level, once again, talking about risk assessments, these are the things you want to touch. I really do need. Oh yeah, shout out Miss Burgess. That's definitely it. I'm touching my toe in it. Shout out to my man Dwight and Chris. The CIPP. That's probably fourth on my list. Shout out to B-Dub. She's still getting on me. I need to take that CISSP. PBO getting old. He's been tired. But once again, yeah, that privacy's really expanding. Now, when I look at RFPs and risk assessments, I see a lot of GDPR language, even in the United States, because they talk about processor. I'm like, that's a GDPR term, right? So, but I think we do need a national privacy law to kind of get that down. But once again, these are the different departments. Once again, when I work for the big companies, I kind of like quarterback, and then I reach out to each one of these departments and ask them questions. Then once again, our security department, they send out their security questionnaire. Then on the GRC side, we got a security exhibit that legal kind of built with us. Like, you need to be, and that's coming up in the next slide. These are the usually things that were in our DPA or our security exhibit. Let me get back to the slides. So these are PBO. These are the things I kind of tap on when I first do a risk assessment, just to get me started. Breach notification, because really none of this comes up unless somebody get hacked or something happened, right? That's really when this stuff really comes up, right? If you get a breach, that's when everybody, oh, did they have policies and procedures? Did they have this? So first thing I want to know is breach notification. From people know I do federal work. The IRS, if you say something in 24 hours, you need to be known, right? I think FBI with the CJIS, I think they're 72 hours, right? So depending on the federal agency and your classification of data. I usually do 72 hours or less. Anything longer than 72, I usually have to send that up to the CISO or the CIO or the business notification. Right? Prohibited telecom. Long story in a nutshell. Huawei, you're not getting anything from Iran or Iraq. Where are you getting your computer equipment from? The cool thing is AWS and Azure, they already have this covered. If you look inside their trust center, they validate where they get their source material. They're actually putting it on a database and tracking their individual components to make sure they know where they're getting what's again their individual components. Firewall at minimum IDS or IPS. Logging, we want them to have some kind of SIM. Patching configuration, you need to be on Patch Tuesday. You need to make sure any critical or high level patches you handling. So how do you handle that process? Physical and logical separation with data and logging in and badging in. All that's kind of included. Encryption, right at a high level, your corporation should be doing encryption. Now, should it be FIP? Should it be AES 256? Should it be DAS3? Now, what type of encryption? People know I do Fed, so 9 times out of 10, it's got to be AES 256, right? Security and awareness training. We want to make sure you're taking care of your staff. Policies and procedures, just standard. I always put that with management. Chris just asked, what kind of background investigations are you doing? Once again, OFAC is the government where they do drug tests, criminal, employment. Most time people are doing I tell you the weird thing I see a lot of times, people are actually taking the drug tests out, especially weed. So I guess marijuana is becoming a doable drug, which kind of throws me off a little bit because I'm old. But yeah, we're starting to see that pushback on that. And two, I like to see compliance certification. Shout out to my man Dave, he's in there. You got a SOC 2 Type 2 FedRAMP, State Ramp, FISMA, or a lot of times, if not a GLPA, which is for banks, they have a statement in their right to audit. So if we don't feel like something is correct, we can fly out and have a right to audit your organization. Right. So if I don't have any other certifications, I'm gonna put we have a right to audit at least every year, as long as we give you a 72-hour notice. Right. I've actually seen it on one RP where they had a right to audit, and if they thought something was funny, you actually had to pay their hotel bill, which I thought was weird. I went to my boss. He goes, "Oh no, we're not doing that." So those kind of stuff you look in there, I just never forgot that. That right to audit, and yeah, you're gonna pick up our hotel bill. We was like, "Oh no, we're not." So, and two is who's your point of contact? CISO. A lot of companies, CIO and CISOs are one person, right? And if I'm doing anything in the cloud, I like to do just the big vendors, right? We're gonna be elitist, right? We're gonna go Azure, Oracle. I'm not a big Google fan. Once again, Oracle's in there. Probably the top 5 rack space, right? And a lot of our vendors are actually in Oracle and Azure, right? Half of their software runs into that. So those are kind of PBO's top 10. I think that's more than 10. So when I start doing a risk assessment, those are the things I kind of hit to start off. The cool thing is a lot of the big companies, all this really is on their website. So a lot of times you can just go search for breach notifications, search for their firewall, search for logging and monitoring. And they kind of have that kind of spelled out for you on their site. So let's see. See what my man AB said. Do you see any organizations building TPR frameworks that were skilled enough to that? Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a few out there. Once again, since I do federal work, NIST is the framework, right? So I sent out, or the IRS, they tell you kind of part of their framework what they want you to do in there, right? And part of that framework is schisms or STIGs or CIS benchmark checks. So I send those checks out to say, if you're running this type of Windows servers, this is how you harden it, right? And these are the things that need to be fixed. So what's your score on your CIS level 1, CIS level 2, or CMMC? Yeah, there's quite a few frameworks. I've just been doing it so long. I just got to know what I'm looking for. And a lot of times too, for larger companies, the clients we deal with already have federal work, so they have federal compliances already. They're going to have your SOC 2 type 2. They're going to have your FedRAMP. So for me, it's kind of like I can kind of look at those findings, look at those documentation, look at those websites. Once again, encryption, FIPS 140-3 cost a lot of money. So I'm trying to see if they got those endpoints. Shredding for the IRS, it's almost dust. That's real expensive. So there's like, once again, 10 things, depending on what I'm reviewing, that I just kind of OJT. So like I said, I've just been doing this forever. Right to audit, but they don't apply to AWS. Oh, facts, Dave. But the cool thing is, and Dave makes a good point, you just can't roll up to AWS. AWS always had the big 3PLs that come already out and validated, right, Dave? So those, right, that, and I do have that in another slide. I guess I'll show it. But no, Dave's right, and I'm going to bring up that other slide. I was going to skip it, but shout out to Dave. Shout out to PBO. Shout out to me. We're going to freelance it. And that's what Dave's talking about there, shared responsibility matrix. And he's right. AWS says, we got the bottom player. You don't need to check on us. We good. The government done looked at us. We got 3PLs out. We done had the Fed out. We good down here in the orange, right? You're responsible in blue up here. So, but Dave's correct. So, but that's the good thing is, and AWS don't want me and 1,000 other people checking their data center. So they had their 3PLs out, or big time people like Dave B that knows how to do assessment. So once Dave B says AWS is good, they good. Shout out to him, right? So no, but once again, they had that reviewed. They know that's blessing. So you're responsible for blue. So even though they gave you computer system, how you're encrypted? Are you using a KMS key? Are you using a HMS key that's a hardware key that you control? Are you using the AWS keys? Just because they give you compute, you have to configure it in blue, right? So that's the part I'm assessing to make sure you configured it right. But David's 100%. You're just not going to roll up into AWS. But once again, shout out to AWS, Azure, and the big guys. They made their data center FedRAMP, FISMA, high trust. They got all the certification they need. So that cuts my job down exponentially, right? Because I know they have that particular piece taken care of. Right. So, but no, Dave is 100% correct. Ms. Burge, are you incorporating questions from your PQRC standards yet? A few. A lot of times in the Fed space, once again, those are already answered once again by AWS. So we would just have to answer the vendor those particular questions. And once again, those are usually done by, once again, that sheet, that's usually done by the privacy team, not the GRC team, to be honest. Now, if you're a small team, and if you're a small company, we don't answer those questions, right? So a lot of times, too, it's a separate issue. The PCI, you're either going to have the certifications or not, right? So that's kind of, we handle that. PBL was like, shout out to you, Breezy. Y'all, shout out to my team, B-Dubs and Chris signed me up to lecture. So but once again, I'm going to jump back. Dave, you want to come up and chat it up? Because I know you do this in real life, but once again, that shared responsibility, he brought that up. And actually, I think I was going to skip that slide. But once again, AWS has every certification. I've done ITAR, CMC, NIST 800-53, IRS Pub Sin 75. They got GDPR, CCPA, New York DFR for privacy. AWS and Azure has it. Why do they have all those certifications? They trying to get that state and federal money. So they take care of all of that. So what I got to do is make sure the third party configures them correctly, right? Ooh, that's an excellent question, Chris. For me, meaningful key risk. Once again, those are the big ones, and two, it depends on the industry. In the federal space, once again, that list I put, breach notification, what the time is. If they've been breached in the past, how do they handle it? That's a good question. For my side, because I do a lot of federal work, those indicators are just kind of built in when you do STIG questionnaires or CIS questionnaires. A lot of those key risk indicators are built into those questions. Once again, are you using the proper encryption? Are you using the proper hardening? And we looked at the STIGs and the CIS checks. They got high, medium, low, or significant. If you got a critical finding, and it's a finding because you can't configure your hardware, that it shows you your risk off the chart. So that's kind of what I use as my key risk indicators. So I don't really drill down in one. When I do those type of questionnaires coming from the STIG or the CIS benchmarks or the schisms, they actually handle that type of, that gets built to show your risk from those. And a lot of times we can build dashboards, and the risk comes if they're critical, moderate, significant, or high, medium, or low. My slides went away. I don't know if that's good or bad. B-Dubs, you take my slide. Oh, appreciate you. It's all good. So here, let me see. I'm gonna wrap it up. I think that's really all I had. I wanted to keep it short. I knew Chris. And once again, shout out to my man David B. So if on-prem, you're responsible for all of this. Infrastructure as a service, right? So you manage in orange, right? Platform as a service. SaaS as a service is not quite right? They're responsible for all of this, but once again, you can still configure it. If you run RDS, you still have 20 things you configure. How you doing encryption? How are you handling cross-site scripting? Are you doing WAF in front of your application? So it's not totally you have no responsibility, because even though it's SaaS in the big cloud vendors, you still have a lot of switches that you control even from a SaaS standpoint. So I'm gonna say that slide's a little off. So there's the SFTP service, some things we would want to do to correct it. Once again, it's really more the SOC and the security architectures, IP whitelisting, PGP encryption and rest in transit. Now, GRC, we'll talk about encryption, rest in transit, and maybe if this fits, but if they're talking about, once again, from AWS, it's got to be private link inside their tenant. Configuring that wouldn't be us. That would actually be the security architects, right? Back to this screen right here. So I think that's really all I had. I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. I didn't want to, and Chris said we might do 2 or 3 of these. So I just want to kind of do the first one. And B-Dub dropped the link. She's always on top of it. Shout out to her. You want to come in the stage, or you just drop them in there? We can keep going through the questions. Let's see. Peter. I see my man Cam. Maybe I missed out the fourth party, third party. Rinse and repeat of these principles, or does it differ? Yeah, it differs because, and I talked a little bit about that, is when you do, I used to get in trouble because I want to manage everything. But when you start putting so many requirements on your third party vendors, legally you're running their program. So if they do something and you get them hacked, they can actually sue you, right? So you let them make the decisions. Okay, I don't want to do this, but this is the mitigating controls, and you just validate their controls, right? So I used to always get in trouble with that. So I'm always stepping that line because PBO knows everything. No, I'm just joking. Shout out to my man. I want to bring my man AB because he brought up the he taking a little lunch break. He coming back. He brought up the good, excellent question about AWS. You're just not going to roll in there and look at their data center. Let's see. AB, how do they prioritize vendors' risk with dealing with tens of hundreds of third party? Usually your data classification. So at that, when I was working at the Department of Revenue, anything that had IRS data, because that was our oversight, that was number one, right? So you kind of classify your data and what data set and what systems tell you what to prioritize. But you have to be careful because I never forget, I did this DR test, and it was just so beautiful. We had one little SFTP server. We forgot to bring it over, but we forgot that moved all 10,000 files every month. So without that little SFTP server, couldn't nobody do no work, right? So those are the kind of things as you do those tests and kind of figure out what prioritize what's touching what. So chime in there, my man. I've been up here on my snowbox.
It's fantastic stuff, man. I tell you what, it's crazy that to think about it from a federal point of view that you see and deal with on a day-to-day basis. But it's just crazy to think that people neglect that. Like, how do you neglect a third-party risk? I mean, I just don't understand. So
no, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna interrupt you. AWS and Azure is so good, they think if it's SOC 2, they good. I'm like, dude, that's just for their part, right? I mean, AWS, I see that a lot from the vendors. Oh, AWS, I'm cool. I'm like, you're incorrect. So I think that's what people get sucked on, because AWS is just so good and they're great and they're so easy. So they think if they spin it up, they don't think about the part they have to configure, the keys, the encryption, HSM. So I think that, especially little companies, I see that all the time. I'm in AWS and everything's certified. Yeah, but you got to configure it correctly. So I think that's what gets a lot of people.
100%. Because I got a client right now, no names, but they were getting away from the AWS key management. Well, not the KMS, sorry, but the AWS access keys, because they're supposed to rotate them at least every 90 days, right? Quarterly. But they're not. Well, how do I say this? They were supposed to move everything over to the IAM, right? The identity access management, and be done with it, where they wouldn't have to do all that, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's 2 accounts that are still there. And I thought that they were getting rid of them from last year, but they didn't. So we have to ask about it. Yeah. When we ask about it and they don't provide, then it says, well, here we go, back into the situation we were kind of at last time. So there's a lot of those things, like you just said, just because, and I brought up inheritance a little bit ago too, and whether that applies to high trust or whatever you're using it, even in your instance, that AWS has those things covered because you did that that risk matrix, or that responsibility, shared SRM, the shared responsibility matrix. And even if you did all that, and B-dubs can attest to like the in PCI and everything too, where you can, there's a lot of stuff you can rely on the AOC from the company, whoever, right? All that to say that, like you said, you have to be the one that puts your firewall together, right? And you got to put so if you leave ports open, none of that S matters. If you're using AWS, you leave that port open, or you left it or opened it and never shut it, whatever, bam.
But the crazy thing is, a lot of times is usually that doesn't file on the GRC, that files on our security teams, because they're gonna do the port scan. I don't do port scanning in GRC. If you're using standard ports, right? Most of the times in GRC, I don't talk about ports. Now I can, because I'm that versatile. Shout out to me for beat up shirt. But most people in GRC, they're not gonna talk about ports, man, right? That's usually the security team. That's why I brought up the slide with the different teams in. So but as a little team, where we talk about GRC technically wise, what should you know and what's the breaking point in. But a lot of times, ports and protocol, that's gonna be the IT team or the security architecture team. Now, once again, I've done both of those, so I can actually do that. Oh, it's with Birch. Okay, I was misunderstanding. Go ahead.
And a lot of it depends on each company too, and how it's structured and the different departments. But yeah, there's definitely a few questions here that I marked. I'm gonna bring them up.
Okay.
Got the first one from Chris. What are the most common mistakes organizations make when sharing data with vendors?
They do it over email. So I don't think they take the proper precaution. I think a lot of times you're secure and I'm secure, but how are you transmitting that? Even if you just encrypt it and put in a password and send it to me. I have people send findings of major, I'm seriously, $1 billion companies over email. I'm like, dude, I'm thinking in my mind, but to me, it's their data, right? So I'm not going to chastise them. I'm like, you're responsible for your data. You sent it over email. I'm cool with it. Not really, but so for me, that was huge. And 2 is from because I'm an AWS fanatic fanboy. There's a lot of ways to transfer data, right? So S3 bucket, you encrypt it. You can take your own customer keys. So depending on how you want, and I work for big time banks. They won't let you on their system. You got a VDI into their VDI, and they give you this little desktop and a couple spreadsheets and tell you to work it out, right? So I've seen where people let me do whatever I want on the network, and I've seen people do VDI, and I'm struggling to do a spreadsheet on a VDI desktop trying to do an assessment. So once again, people are not taking the right level of security for the type of data they're sharing. So that's what I see the most common mistakes.
That's 100% correct. That's crazy as hell that they send that stuff over email. Sorry.
I get a lot of people doing that, man. Big companies too, man. I'm like, you a Fortune 500 company, man. Hey, if he feel good about it, if he like it, I love it, man. So that's what that's so.
Let's see, we have another question from Chris.
Yeah.
Do you have a video or at least know about the FASCSA, Federal Acquisition Supply Chain Security Act?
I do not have a video. I do know of it at a high level. Once again, since I do federal work, I think I had to watch a video on that. Long story short, I just don't really pay attention. Why I don't pay attention? Because either I'm doing IRS Pub 1075 or NIST. So long as I follow that, I'm gonna be okay with the act, right? A lot of people do FISMA, which is the Financial, Modernization Act. If you're doing federal work, you're applying to the Modernization Act. So that's kind of why I say I didn't want to be flippant about it. But if you're doing NIST or IRS, you automatically complying with that act. So
See, what do you actually do with an SBOM from a TPRM perspective?
to be honest,
What is an SBOM?
Say what it is, Dave.
Software build of materials.
The cool thing is AWS makes it easier for you to do that. I think that really happened in the last 5 years. To be honest, I really don't do a lot with an SBOM because if I'm doing my risk assessment and I'm getting your third parties, for me the SBOM, and I'll let Dave, that's super detailed a lot of times. That's telling you what actually individual software. Once again, a lot of times I don't want to get to that level because sometimes I think I'm taking legal responsibility of the software, right? I'm looking at the service a lot of times, not the software underlying it. So that's kind of where I draw the line. Once again, at DOD, I used to get my hand slapped. Once again, a lot of times my boss thought I was telling them so much to do that I was actually running their program and not assessing it. When you assess things, you say what's wrong and they need to fix it and show you their mitigated control. So legally, he thought I was doing too much. So chime in on that, Dave. So what's your thoughts on that?
Hit the wrong button. Hit the right click on my mouse pad instead of the left. Anyways, so we don't examine it from the point of view that we're telling them this is vulnerable or whatever. That's not our job either. Right. We're just saying, number one, do you have it? Because if you have it and you're tracking it and you have your own spreadsheet that says we're tracking it for vulnerabilities,
that's a good point.
Now that's where we feel a lot more comfortable. But if you don't know what we're talking about, and you're using open source materials too. Sorry if my screen's shaking. I apologize. No, if you're using open source material products, excuse me, and you don't know what's in there, the libraries, then how can you actually say that you're secure? So
the sad part about it, and I agree with you 100% on that, is most companies just buying software that's pre-bundled with that, especially if you use open source. It's pre-packaged with that. A lot of times they don't know what's in that package. That's why everybody got hit with Log4j. Because when I do Java, I got libraries. I just compile them together and says, this is the service everybody's using. A lot of people don't decompile at that level.
No, yeah, they don't. But to Chris's point, from a third-party risk management perspective, you're just looking at it to make sure that they at least track it and they're going from there. That's what I would say. The quick, easy.
No, you're right, and I think that's something I miss a lot of times on mine, right? Because I don't go to that level. A lot of times since I'm working for big companies, I'm making an assumption. Do you ask that question? You can always pass that if I ask you a question a lot. Do you ask that in your SOC 2 Type 2?
No, not normally. So okay. just a quick high level on a SOC. The controls are the clients, right? So we work with the client to say, hey, this is that. And that's why it's easier to get around. I don't want to use, sorry, that's a bad phrase. Easier to skirt around things in a SOC. But if it was a PCI, like B-Dubs can attest to, or High Trust or whatever, they're prescriptive as hell, and you either are or are not compliant. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I don't even think that's a STIG question. I need to dig down in that. I think it's a great question. I just don't see it asked a lot because, I hate to say this, I don't think most companies are mature enough to get to that level, to be honest. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on it? I just don't see the maturity of companies talking about SBOM at a detailed level. I think now softwares are easy to make it come up with SBOM, but I don't know how detailed they're using it, right?
Well, they should not just do it for those open source products. They should do it for all their products.
Oh, 100%. But, 100%.
If you're reaching out, and maybe this is to Chris's point too, if you're reaching out and you're asking your third parties, just know, do you have an SBOM for your stuff that we're using? You do? You track? You vulnerability? Good. Okay. Thank you so much.
No,
can we see that by chance? But we're not going, just as in case anybody didn't know, I, as an auditor, am not going to go to my clients' third parties. I'm asking them to pull it up themselves to show us. You know what I mean? If it gets that granular, it usually doesn't. But
right.
Yeah, we're asking our client, do you have an SBOM for your stuff? And if you're using part of your third parties, then it kind of, that's where you tie it in, right?
But what I do, probably not at that level, I ask them, are they doing risk assessment of their third parties? And can I see a couple of their risk assessments done on third parties? right at a high level. That's not detailed down to the SBOM level, but at least I know you're doing some risk assessment to your third parties, right? So I think that's kind of what I'm at, not quite at the SBOM level.
From a SOC perspective, mostly, but all the other ones too. You asked, did you do? I can't talk right now. Sorry. Did you do your due diligence? Number one, before you brought them on. What do you look for? Blah blah blah. And then annually, are you confirming that they're still, a good company, whatever? So yeah, you got to go those. You at least touch those things.
Yep. What's out there, B-Dub? There was a couple of them.
Yeah, there's a few more. So Miss Burgess asked a question about the PQC. She said she was asking about post-quantum cryptography with FIPS. Did you address that?
I did, but not at the level she was talking about. To be honest, and going along with FIPS is, she's correct. Quantum cryptography is going to make every encryption irrelevant. But from a federal standpoint, they said long as it's FIPS 140-2, 140-2-3, that's the only thing I care about. But I think she's correct from quantum, that level of encryption. But from a federal compliance, I just need to make sure it's FIPS, right, at the 3. They're going to worry about it if the quantum computer can break it, right, from a federal level. But she's correct. We do need better encryption for quantum computing when it comes. But now I just stay in my lane, Miss Burgess. I don't get to the 2 or the 3. I'm just at the 140-2-3. As long as they're doing that, I'm cool with that. You want any of that, Daddy?
Yeah. No, I was when I saw Ms. Burgess write that earlier, that question, I'm sitting there thinking, woof. Yeah, because I had that too, thinking, well, because I know your favorite is 256, right? You're an AES fan, right?
Facts.
But
BDAS, I made an AES that didn't exist. I was counting 324. I was confused with DAS one day. But go ahead.
Yeah, I remember that.
PBO was tired, but go ahead on that day.
No, I was just going to say that's going to be crazy when it comes out. I mean, who's going to be first? It should be the federal government, but sometimes they lag, and that's fine in the sense too that if it's not ready, it's not ready. But I know probably everybody on here looks at different things and catches your eye, especially like that chip. I will mess up the name all day, but Microsoft took over 20-something years to develop, and it's in the size of the palm of your hand, right? And you're thinking, holy moly. They came up with another phase of matter, right? I'm not going to get into all that, but if anybody has any, I'll look up the name and I'll try to get it to you, or maybe I bet you Chris has it in his back pocket and he can shoot it on here. But there's some interesting things out there that are not going to involve having to have it super cooled and all that. And when it gets more practical, we better hurry up. NIST, where you at? Call out, NIST, where you at?
Like I said, I just kind of stay in my lane. I just tell me to do what NIST do. I don't think anything further. Quantum, one of them was splitting an atom and it vibrated in different parts of the world. Nah, man, if they just say FIPS 140-3, that's all I'm at. So,
we can't hit you up with the quantum just yet. You ain't even over AI yet. You ain't even on board with that. So.
I'm still blocking hallucinations, but now facts, but no. So let's see what else is out there.
B-Dub, what's your thoughts on the post-quantum cryptography?
I don't know enough to have thoughts.
Yeah, facts.
I mean, I have thoughts, but they're not educated thoughts.
And that's, which is kind of bad for me.
Cam put it in there.
Yeah, what's good and bad about what I talk about, what I'm consistent about is the federal government a lot of times are behind. What the federal government says is, we know what this is, we have hardening for it, and this is it, right? A lot of times they're going to be behind what's novel type of attack. But what I tell the people about the Fed is, what they run, you're going to take care of 80% of the stuff you're going to handle with. If you do STIG hardening or PCI hardening, or because most people aren't doing the basics, right? So I'm just trying to do the basic things to do a security program. So,
look, if people just started with the basics, they would go a long way. Yeah.
Oh, they kill a game. They do the basics. What you got left for us, B-Dub?
Couple more still. Okay. Lots of questions tonight, PBO.
Okay.
not sure if you can answer this, but is there any difference in TPRM in the federal space versus the industry private sector?
Oh yeah, 100. The reason why is the federal government is super prescriptive. Once again, I do NIST 800-53 and IRS, so they're gonna tell you you need to have a FIPS endpoint, right? And that FIPS endpoint needs to be like we just talked about. FIPS 140-3. That's super prescriptive. They usually don't talk about that in the private sector. What I've seen, I'll let Dave chime in. I usually don't see that level of prescription inside industries that much. Even I looked in banking, I've never seen them talk about FIPS in banking, but maybe I missed it. So for me, the federal space is super prescriptive. Now, a lot of times, some of that prescription is out of date, but they are super prescriptive, right? One of the big things with IRS is how do you destroy documentation? It was like a quarter cut, cross cut. It was almost dust, right? You don't see that stuff in the private industry.
I heard you say that earlier, like pulverized.
No, it was crazy because people start figuring we try to do it. They were talking about we need ventilator masks to do it. Everybody wrote the IRS saying like, dude, we can't afford to do this, man. So they had to roll it back. So I just never forgot that. But now there's a huge difference between federal space and the private space. I think the federal is more prescriptive in their stuff for that. When I look in the private sector, SOC 2 Type 2 is decent. You get a little maybe CCPA, a little CIS, where I think for me, and two is I'm going to let Dave chime in. I just live so much in the federal space. When you talk about doing FISMA, NIST 800-53 with STIGs, a small system is going to be about 5,000 checks. I just don't see those level of checks in the private industry or not.
Yeah. From my POV, I don't deal a lot with the feds right now, but our company does. I just haven't been a part of those audits. But yeah, I would definitely say that they're more prescriptive too. But like they want to see more. But it really boils down to if you're smart and you know how people access things, and you know where did you buy your switch from? Did you get it from eBay? I mean, I'm BSing, but literally, did you buy it secondhand? Mm-hmm. You know, are you sure that? Sorry, my dog's barking. Are you sure that you can mess with it?
No, that's true. That's facts. And that once again, so yeah, there's a huge difference between federal and private sector. I tell people if you start off in the Fed, when you go to private, it makes it a lot easier. But if you got a security program, a finding's a finding. Policy's a policy. All right. But once again, I think the federal is much more prescriptive. And there you actually have to get an ATO, an authority to operate. So you would get third parties in the federal space a lot more than you do in the private. I think B-Dubs can probably chime in on PCI in case in the private space. I'm giving B-Dubs work now. She want to chime in on PCI.
Yeah. I mean, I have experience in the private, not federal. But yeah, you're probably right on everything that you've said. I agree with you.
I appreciate it. Shout out to me.
Shout out to me.
With the shirt on. Shout out to me.
Yeah.
Hey, I got my shirt coming. I think it's going to be here tomorrow. So it's a day late and $1 short, but you know, it's coming to me.
I was surprised when B-Dub shot. Like, oh shit, she got the shirt.
I actually just pulled it out of the package and threw it on for the stream.
I appreciate it.
Because I had to show my support for PBO.
I appreciate it.
And me too, right?
Shout out to me. Yeah, so shout out to B-Dubs and Chris for signing me up. I happened to look out there like, oh shit, I got to do a stream. I got so many slides. It's easy. Once again, too, is I got actually separate slides in the slide deck we're not going to do today. But if we want to continue with this, that actually breaks down the risk assessment family inside NIST 800-53 to the subfamilies. I didn't even talk about that today because I knew we were going to easily get to an hour. So I just went with the 12 slides and pivot from there.
Easy to an hour. So do you have any practical TPRM resources, projects I have a new responsibility of running TPRM and improving our process?
I need to dig into that, to be honest. Long story short, I just really run to the NIST. What does that mean? They have 20 families. You should have policies and procedures for those. Then for us, either I'm doing the schisms or the STIG checklist. as part of our security questionnaire. So that's kind of how I break that down. I don't know if Dave got some SOC 2 gems he wants to throw in there, but that's kind of how I do it. And once again, I've been OJT in it. That's just kind of how I learned when I was in the federal space. So
I made a joke and I said Excel, but literally, I mean, you start with that. That's where I would definitely start. But I mean, it's an easy Google search. We got companies using security scorecard, and again, I don't work for any of these, and I'm not. Put PBO's disclaimer up there, folks. But anyways, these opinions are my own. No, but UpGuard, BitSite, OneTrust, different things like that for sure.
There we go.
And, I mean, even we some people might make fun of Vanta and Drata, but they do it to a point. Black Kite's is a good one, so I've heard. So really, it's just you pay them, and I don't know the name there. I don't want to mess it up, but I'm gonna call you AD as in Alpha Delta, and so. AD, I would say that it depends on how much your company's going to let you spend on it. But start with an Excel sheet. Start with getting all their SOC 2 reports, and then anything else that you can handle from there. And Chris has brought up many times, but there's so many different ways. I don't know what your company does, and if they already have their own, say, model of an LLM that they keep local and things like that. I wouldn't put it out there if you're not doing that, but you could put it together and say, hey, here's what I got. Can you help me generate any risk as, for a risk tolerance, right? So you want to do your own risk assessment on them, and you should still do it. Even if you pay these other companies, you should still look at it. You know what I mean? But paying them actually, it goes a long way, especially if you have a whole bunch, a long list, and they'll make sure that they submitted their SOC 2s, and they'll have that SOC 2, so you can go straight there and just kind of access it from one place.
Facts. Yeah.
That's all your questions, PBO. You made it.
No, I appreciate it. Let's hang out a little bit. If anybody else want to come up, you can come on up. You said something I wanted to chime in back on. And one of the things that was kind of in my list is, especially if you're dealing with the bigger companies with bigger clients, most of them's going to have a SOC 2 type 2. So I would get that, or they're going to have some kind of compliance that they have to do yearly. So a lot of times they don't want you to come on site. So a lot of people are just doing a SOC 2 type 2. And you can at least get the, a lot of times they won't give you findings, but they give you the executive summary sheet a lot of times. So you can kind of put that in your file.
So you got real quick. Sorry to cut you off there, but you got to put up Chris's little third-party risk management lifecycle simulator that he put together for the study GRC group here.
The attack one?
No, it's a learning simulator.
I don't know which one she talking. I know the one he had where if we get disrupted, that's the only one I remember. So I don't know. B-Dub's probably going to pull it up.
It's right after Ranya's comment.
I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was something they had in the background or something. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry. This is my first time using the laptop trying to talk to y'all, and I got a half a screen with y'all and the other half a screen with the YouTube chat, trying to catch up, trying to act like I know what I'm doing over here.
There we go.
Okay.
Let's see.
So what, PBO? You see what Chris did? Number one, he's got the join Discord QPC right over your head. I mean the QR code right over your head. So it looked like you. There you go. It looked like you're saying join PBO. No, but anyways, I guess that was a B-Dub's fun gesture there. But I think this is cool, man, Chris. I haven't got to play with it obviously yet. Look, Cam's saying it's awesome. So,
I haven't played with it yet either. But
why is Chris not getting on stage to tell us all about it?
Facts. He's supposed to be off, I think. So I don't know.
Oh, he's supposed to be off, but he just put this together in the background.
He can't help. He can't help.
This is him taking the night off.
Yeah, facts. But yeah, so third parties I think real big. A lot of people even if you're doing it as a checkbox, I think you need to do. What does that mean? Just do the standard, questionnaire. Do you have a SOC 2 type 2? What type of encryption? IDS, IPS, SIM. I think a lot of basic stuff, right? Even if you're not, because 2 is you want to do something, because if you get hacked and you do nothing, that means you're negligent and you're going to get a big fine. Even if you do the normal checkbox, you can at least say, I look at these high-level things, so at least you're not negligent. Chime in on what's your thoughts on that, Danny?
You're stepping into a realm I wouldn't touch because I don't do check boxes. Bam! But anyways, no, long short of it is if that's how easy it is for some of the things that you're dealing with, at least they're doing something, and something is always better than nothing in this arena. However, if you're going to spend that much time, what's another 10, 20 minutes to look the report over, make sure. No, I mean, because it tells you what controls that they have. And if you match those controls, that's where, regardless of what the control number is, in a numerical order. But if you look at the CC, the CASO principles, and like CC12, CC61, whatever it's touching, right? It's the same thing bouncing back to the 853, whatever the codes are, right? And then you say, okay, well, look, at least they're okay. Yeah, they got this. And then if you feel comfortable with it, roll on. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a big wake up call for the CMMC and things like that. As they're coming through the Fed ramp, state ramp, all that jazz. I think it's going to be, a lot of people are going to say, oh, wait a second. If I'm going to do business with this person who's going to do business with the government, then I need to get this stuff.
No, I agree. Like you said, you got to take your first step, though. So you got to get in the game.
So Chris put the link to this in chat. But yeah, so there's a button you can start over, I believe.
You see that US-West one? Every time I see that, I just see AWS.
I do too. Yeah. Telling on itself.
So when you open it up, you can generate profile with AI, and it creates this vendor profile for you. So you can read through all of that. It says you're a GRC analyst. Your task is to conduct a full lifecycle risk assessment for a new critical vendor, aligning with the NIST SP 800-161 framework for cyber supply chain risk management. Follow the steps below to complete the TPRM process. So you generate a vendor profile and then proceed to due diligence, generate your questions. And I would recommend, reading through this. I'm just showing the functionality, but AI is thinking. There we go. So yeah, here's your questions.
So that goes back to answers. AD. If you're still on here, AD, I don't know how to pull up a name and see if people are still in chat, but
yeah, it's a great resource.
Yeah, get you something. You know what I mean? You might look like a genius bringing this up and in front of your boss or whatever. Or maybe you don't show them this, but you show them the results of this. There we go.
Well, it's a good exercise to kind of go through the motions, get the thought processes and kind of the methodology. So yeah, now it's answered our questions for us. Proceed to risk analysis. Analyze risk from Q&A.
Did you answer the Q&A?
No, AI answered it. So it's a simulator though.
Okay.
So I think it's for people trying to learn.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, simulator. Yeah. I didn't even think about it like that. Sorry. I was gotcha.
Oh, that's supposed to be that way. Yeah. I thought I broke it.
Oh, just telling you what's a finding, I guess.
Yeah.
Look, we're doing our UAT testing right now, even though I guess we're done.
Okay,
UAT.
And these risks are critical, suggested mitigation. These are high.
So I apologize, AD. I see you're still here. So this is a simulator. So this is just to help you get more familiar what you should be looking for and doing. But you could possibly take some of this and then put it into a large language model and come up with something too. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes through the motions, and you could like sit there and try to answer the questions or think about what the risks are before you go to that page. But yeah, then you go to the contractual controls, draft your clauses. But yeah, you can just go through and simulate the whole TPRM lifecycle. It's pretty sweet. This is my first time looking at it, so.
And the cool thing is, I mean, the cool thing in there, like we talked about, Dave, we talked about encryption as some of the stuff they're bringing up in the simulator. I kind of put my 14 things up in there. I had encryption, the training was in my 14. So once again, those are things you should look at from a high level. Once again, and Dave's correct a lot of times, especially my smaller clients. I kind of go on, let's go on this compliance checkbox. Let's get started. Let's get your feet wet. Do you have policies? Do you have procedures? Do you have awareness training? And Dave will know. Dave want to say, okay, you took awareness training. I need to see who took it, when you took it, and if you passed. Because most now training, you got to pass like 5 questions to make sure you kind of understand. So where's your dashboard showing that you took this type of training? Is that training job specific now? They want the programmers have programming security training, the DBA. So all that stuff is, those are things you're asking. Those are artifacts you get. Chime in on that, Dave.
It's funny you brought that up. I have never given a damn whether or not they passed it. It's, do you afford your people the test?
Okay.
And I'm being sarcastic and a smart ass on purpose, because that's not what the question is. The question is, do you afford them the training? Is it blank specific? Are you doing phishing campaign? Whatever the heck it is. Yep. And then we see the examples of it. I've seen some people that had a 50, but I don't question why they had a 50, because I don't know. It could be something. They could have had an error in they lost connection. Who knows? But I've never gone that deep into it, because I don't think that's where the liability. It's the company itself is presenting it and offering it, and and it's mandatory for them to take it to continue employment. So at the very least, you're there. But that's just funny you brought that up, because I'm wondering if you really. We had a conversation today about background checks, and I'll jump back to what you've actually seen when it comes to test results or whatever, training results, but background checks. And somebody said, so do you need to see a certain thing in the background check? And we said, no. We just need to see, did you run it on that person? And was it before they were hired? I mean, that, like, I don't need to know if they stole something when they were in 2nd grade. I don't care. That's not for me. You hired them. So whatever they did do, you must have said it was not big enough for us to not hire them. So, there's got to be some of that fine line of, I mean, maybe if I was the HR person, I'm definitely going to be looking at a lot more detail, but I'm the auditor just asking the HR person, can you show me that you did this for this person?
Right. And that's an excellent point. Like you said, is from an assessor job to a company's job. If the company says, these are the standards we use to get hired them, you hired them, right? So your thing is like, did you did a background check? Now, your standards are your standards, right? So.
And speaking of, God bless, talking about test earlier, B-dubs, I got 9 days. 9 days till I take my CISA, and I'm nervous.
Oh, you got this one.
Why are you nervous? It's just money, man. You can always take it again. That's why
I've already taken it once. I failed it once.
Hey, man. It's like.
And the company will reimburse me if I pass it. So I'm like, all right, just think about it like that. I mean, I thought about it like that last time, but I was 30 points off. I was 30 points.
No pressure.
Yeah.
You right there.
I mean, I was waiting for that CISA training that you said you were going to come out with like the day after yesterday. So I was like, come on. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Shout out to B-Dubs. Shout out to B-Dubs with the excellent training.
B-Dubs never said anything about CISA training.
I know.
Everyone else said stuff about B-Dubs doing CISA training.
Hey, B-Dubs, you should take some black tape and just cover over that PBO, on your shirt and just be like, shout out to me.
Shout out to me.
She's fighting it. She's like, darn it.
There it is. Shout out to me. That's funny. That is funny. Chris, you got our handles. I got Chris like he worked for me. I don't. Chris, drop my handle for me.
Drop your handle.
It's
LinkedIn. I think he wants everybody's LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
AD, like my man.
Oh, put in a. How do you do that? Is it? Hold on. Let me see if I can figure it out. Don't tell me. Don't tell me yet. I got it. Here it is. No, I spelled it wrong. Hold on. Don't do it.
What?
Boom. Did I do it? Is that how you bring up Discord with the exclamation Discord?
Yeah.
No. There you go, AD.
Yeah, get in there. Everybody's in there. I think Chris got. I think mine's in there somehow. I don't know.
Cam, so I don't know if we're rolling off a TPRM, but I'd like to see some of these videos where they're doing the AI and they're doing a Bigfoot, which is just an ugly Bigfoot in my opinion, anyways. But at the same time, I guess my computer just went into night mode because it gave me a tint. But yeah, I can see like a Bigfoot doing a TP, some GRC mentioning, man, I went in there thinking I was going to get this training right here, but no, they hit me up with this, and this. I know y'all seen that on some of the social medias.
I have.
Anyways, well, you know what? I still look forward to watching all your videos, probably at a 2x speed, because you do talk fast there, B-dubs, but you don't talk too fast. Like when I was trying to watch PBO at 3x, I had to slow it down because he was
So,
Do I talk fast?
When you're excited, and when you were excited about NIST and you're excited about presenting, so yeah, you was talking fast.
fun story. I've actually watched all of my videos in the study group. I prefer to watch them on 2x speed. I like it better than my regular voice.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Gives me a little bit more energy,
It's funny. I'll watch these back, and I think I told this to Chris too, or I put it in one of the videos. When I'm talking on my phone without the earbuds, and I don't know how I sound right now, but I'll have a lisp. But when I put the earbuds in, the lisp is gone. I said, so it's an artificial lisp when I'm using my phone. This is BS, man. This is BS.
That sounds like a personal issue.
Yes.
That was funny.
Yes, Cam. Yes. I think you could maybe B-dubs can put that up. That'd be funny.
What, the Bigfoot?
What he wrote. Yes, I asked for TP, not TPRM.
That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, I got probably 10 risk assessments on my channel. So if you need that, and I don't know. It sounds like we're gonna be doing a couple more of these. Listening to Chris, so because too is we can delve more into the questionnaire side. I think that's what a lot of people get to when they think of TPRM. The questionnaires, they could be: do you have these policies? Do you have these procedures? What are you checking off in your spreadsheet? Right. So I think we can dig into that a little more. Actually, from the assessment and auditor standpoint.
Well, I just, I'm glad we're well-rounded here, all around. There's a lot of people from different areas, and I think that helps us a lot, because if we were all just, I don't know, in the government, we'd all only see it from that point of view. So shout out to you for real, PBO, for presenting us with these different avenues that not all of us get to see, and so forth. So
shout out to Chris and B-dubs. They just signed me up, man. I just happened to look on the website. I go, oh shit, that's me. like, oh, that's me. But
well, if you didn't agree to it, then you might want to get some legal help, because they.
I'm good. Man. I hang out with like 5 or 6 people, and I always tell them, if somebody don't show up and you short, just sign me up. 9 times out of 10, I'll do it. So, and most of the times I got some slides on the subject anyway, so it's not like I'm doing it from scratch, or I just want to make sure I don't. Sometimes I go do too deep. A lot of times people glossing over, so I want to, I do it at the appropriate level too. So,
Can you all still hear me?
Woo! Yes. Got loud there a little bit.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, now
Well,
you
I
got it.
didn't change anything. It just did something weird and it muted me. Unless I was muted and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm. No.
See, Cam said, I'm ready for the NIST 853 RM slides. Let's get into it more, PBO. Shout out to you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Like I said, I always do risk management bottom up. So what does that mean? When you do your CIS benchmarks or scanning or your Rapid7, it gives you a score and tells you what's high risk. So I use that score to come up with the risk level of that particular system with the data on it. That's how I usually come up with my risk posture for an organization. Because a lot of times, especially from a new or immature organization, they're not doing any enterprise risk management from the management standpoint. So I start bottom up, giving them some stuff to work with. Then they can start doing enterprise management with those scorecards from your Tenable, your Rapid7. I use AWS config. It'll score your tenant. So that's kind of how I do risk bottom up from an 853 perspective.
We offer those. I'm not on that, but I really do like my team and everyone that works there, and I can't wait to just move around the office a little bit, if you will. Just kind of, I just want to help where I can, and I want to learn as much as I can. You know what I mean? I want to be a SME, but I want to be a SME in several different areas. So
yeah, and like you said, it just kind of happens over the years. You just got to doing with different teams and different areas. I just got lucky, I started off as a programmer, web admin, application, DBA. The only thing I really haven't done is like Linux sysadmin or networking. Everything else I've kind of dabbled a little bit in.
Well, that is cool, man. Just just exploring whatever you can for sure, and then maybe you find your niche, or maybe like you said, you just become a Jack or Jill of all trades.
Yeah, a lot of times I like to move around a little bit. I'm
A
kind of
multi-SME.
a multi. That's a good time. Actually, I'm kind of getting burnt out on GRC. I'm thinking about going back in development, man. I've been toying with it if I want to go back in development or become a data engineer.
Okay. Well, that sounds fun. I mean, you could do that on the offshoot and become your own, right?
So why are you
No.
feeling burnt out on GRC?
Why or how? Why?
Yeah, why?
I just been doing it so long. and it's kind of
Change it up.
repetition. Yeah, I'm okay at documentation, but after a while, I get tired of writing, and that's not exciting to me. I like to build stuff, like you build web apps or databases. You kind of see it when you do a policy; it just kind of sits there. So it's kinda
I mean, you can develop policies too.
yeah, but I don't.
Right?
You can, but for me, I'm lazy because if you go with the CIS, they got all the templates out there. And this, I'm not rewriting. I don't write the best, so I'm definitely not gonna build a policy when I can go get a template. Then I kind of let the business kind of take it and smooth it out to what they want it to be. I just kind of nudge them. But so I go back and forth. But then too is like, do I want to get a call at 2 a.m. because the system's down? I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that again either. So I go back and forth.
So I heard Brexi's doing a CISA study group. So
CISA. It sounds like he's down to study, like he wants you to run it.
B-Dubs ain't running it.
Brexy can run it.
Yeah. Brexi's got it. I have full faith.
Brexi's already got more acronyms after his name than
Facts.
Got to get that CISA. Yeah, I'm down to study the CISA.
Gotta catch them all.
If Brexy does the study group, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I'm about to take my last AWS cert, and I got to get on that CISP. I'm like, man.
B-Dubs got back to studying this week, the next certification.
What are you studying?
So I've been deep down into it. So I am working on getting my CPTS from Hack the Box.
Okay.
That's one thing
I never got into really hacking and the red team aspect of that.
I'm trying to put the hacker mindset in GRC to real life perspective, right? So I got to get my big pen testing cert, and it's a big one. I think it's one of those 5-day exams. So yeah, I'm done with the multiple choice, and
I love multiple choice, but I'm with you.
yeah,
That's a big step. So yeah.
yeah. And I got I got 40% through the training like a
Okay.
year and a half ago. But it's been a year and a half, so I've got to start over. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Oh, Sean gonna ask me. I'm studying for the AWS Developer Associate. For AWS, the reason why is as GRC person, they go over all the services that a developer will use and how they would configure it. So as a GRC person, I like to know that at least at a high level. So when I'm reviewing it, because part of it is OWASP top 10, working with the development teams, cross-site scripting. So you need to kind of understand those tools and services in AWS from a GRC perspective to kind of walk through, especially from a STIG. There's 300 development questions for your development staff. I like to know those inside and out. Shout out to the multi-B. I like that. I like that, the multi-B. So now that's what I'm studying, Shango. Once again, shout out to Combo Courses. When you get interviewed, even at the medium level, people ask you what cloud you understand. Or do you have an understanding of a cloud? So I think that's definitely a point of questions to ask. Now I like that one. Me too, Space Taco. Shout out to Space Tacos. Why she didn't come up? She's an assessor too. She should have been up here,
Yeah,
third party assessing with us.
she's got to get her shirt from the merch shop though. Shout out to me.
Yeah, I'm about to get mine in there, man.
Available in our merch shop.
Space Tacos, you might have missed it, but there I did a shout out to you in a sense because Cam was talking about Majorna. I think that's how you say it. That's that chip I was telling you about from Microsoft. And then some other people said that kind of looks like the other MJ possibly. And then you talking about Michael Jordan. And I said, Feds, hi. So I did a Feds hi for you there, Space Taco.
The funny thing is I thought they were talking about weight loss medicine. Ain't one of the weight loss medicines sound like that? One of the weight loss.
Hey, yeah, it does.
So I thought
shoot, I don't know.
But you know what I'm talking about. I'm like, oh shit, we can talk about weight loss medicine. What's going on with us?
No, but if you after this call, if you spend a few minutes and you look that up and add Microsoft to it too, so you don't get lost in some other sauce. But
facts.
That app there's some videos online. There it is. It's wicked. I keep calling it app. Sorry, that chip, that chip. So yeah.
This is the last thing you brought this up, and one of guys I know I was working with when I left in training him. What's Microsoft's AI called?
Copilot.
Say it again.
Copilot.
Yeah, Copilot, the corporate version. You can put your corporate documentation and training it. People were training it and letting it do third-party assessments. It was coming up with some decent answers. So I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Like I said, I left the job and they were like, I was training people. One guy's like, I'm gonna put it in Copilot. At first, I'm like, because I forgot they got the corporate Copilot where it stays everything in your tenant, right? It doesn't go out to the other one. So they let it read all the policies and procedures, looked up the third party, put their websites in, and told it to give it a recommendation. So it was pretty good. It missed a few things, but I was like, yeah, that's coming. That's gonna be the new third party soon. So I think that's what we should do. Put some stuff in ChatGPT and see from a third party what it would come up with. Like redact the company's name and just kind of walk through it and see what answers it would come up with.
So that's a great point. Even if you're not paying for it, and again, probably disclaimer time needed, but the point where I could say is you just take whatever you need to remove all those names, but just Control H, right? Find and replace. Again, I'm speaking from a Microsoft point of view, right? But I think that's the same. Maybe it's Command H. But the point I'm making is change those names, find it and call it Acme Company or whatever, and then throw that bad boy into something, and then ask it, a ton of questions. Oh, damn, PBO dropping stuff over there.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, but I think and I think that's gonna be the future is AI is gonna do low-hanging fruit, and I think part of that low-hanging fruit is going to be doing a low-level risk assessment.
As long as the questionnaires are answered properly, I mean, that's what all those other Vanta, Drata, all of them try to claim to do, right? I'm not saying they don't, but if the questionnaire was answered correctly, I mean, you saw that third-party
simulator.
Yeah, somebody said it with a T earlier, and I'm trying to.
That's funny.
Stimulator. No.
Be careful.
Damn it, I said it again. Anyways, yeah, I think that's. I was talking to a big boss of mine who actually, he just got promoted again, and I said, I'm following in your shoes when I grow up, and he's younger than me. But regardless, I said, what do you think about AI and blah blah blah, this, that, and the other, and taking our jobs? Nah, I don't see that for a long time. I said but because we're still going to have to offer our actual human opinions on things.
Mm-hmm.
But if AI can take away some of the painful parts of our job, or I should say painful, I don't mean physically painful, but just tedious, whatever, time consuming, then hell yeah, it's a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool.
I mean,
it's painful.
I haven't even found an AI that can calculate math correctly yet. So
I think
I don't trust it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. I think it's not going to take us out, but I think what I've seen in the last years from architect programming is you need less people. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to take everybody out, but I think you're going to need less people. I think it's going to get good. Like if you're going to answer the questionnaire, it's going to be able to go out on their website to kind of make sure they're answering it and coordinate it to what's out on their website. There's a lot of data on companies, what certifications, so you can kind of figure out how they should be answering and if it's way off. So I see that's what's going to happen in the future.
It's going to make us all more efficient.
Yes. But the problem with that though is they believe it's taking 30% of the entry-level jobs. So if you don't have entry-level work, how the hell are you going to get experience? So that's kind of a weird spot.
I mean, maybe the entry level starts at a new spot.
You got to raise the bar.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is, even for entry level, you need experience. So if you raise the bar, how do they get experience?
No, that's not what. Okay, so what do they say? All tides rise. Whatever. All boats rise with the tide. Whatever. The point I'm getting is,
I hate that term, but keep going. I hate.
Yeah,
that
Jerry
term.
loves to say it a lot, and I'm screwing it up. But it does make sense that it's just going to create a new level. So if we were here, and this is the base level, well, now everything being equal again, here's the base level up here again. So that's what I meant by raising the bar. Not like you still have to shine. So anyone on here that's still looking for, a position, you still got to shine, whatever it is.
Facts.
Know your stuff, shine, reach out, network, all those things. But when it comes to AI, you should be. Did y'all hear Jerry talk about his niece and nephew saying, "What is that? You're too old." Blah blah blah. Oh my goodness! I'm telling my kids, I'm like, look, you can use it, but use it responsibly. Because the better you get at this now, man, the places you can go.
Facts. I think Chris and everybody's teasing me with hallucinations. I got to get up on my AI a little better, right? So that's kind of going to be my next, I guess, thing I need to dig into a lot better, I guess.
Monjurno was the name of the weight loss trizipatide that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Not the same as Ozempic, but but anyways, close enough. It's a weight
loss. Yeah, it's on the same.
Yeah, I remember him saying that. When I saw that, I'm like, are they talking about waist loss or chips? Shout out to my bad. I didn't mean to crunch. Shout out to Space Taco. I mean potato salad. You can come to the picnic, Space Tacos. Not ice cream. I was eating potato salad.
I was eating ice cream though earlier, Space Tacos. So there you go.
That might have been my man. I do not, Shango. I keep trying to finish this course. I'm never gonna finish. Dr. O's is gonna fire me. I've been working on this course forever. I have no energy. I'm trying to get my energy back so I can drag Chris to help me finish. So I do not know of any courses. And we kind of anti-boot camp. Chime in on that, B-Dubs.
Come on, PBO. I already put a whole CISSP study group out there, and where's your course?
I know. I'm slacking. I'm blaming
Slacker.
I'm blaming it. I'm almost 60. I just been burnt out. I gotta
Yeah,
get it together.
most of we don't like the term boot camps, but I mean, there's
Fine.
some legitimate stuff out there. I don't know off the top of my head for TPRM, but I believe that's what Chris was referencing when he put this in chat. Um, Google NIST 800 161, YouTube channels like Summit 7. I do know there's a lot of free resources out there, and then you can also check out our resources page. I'll drop
Yeah,
that in chat right
that
now
is a
too.
fat page. I got it up right now, and I
Which
was
one?
The resources.
Oh yeah.
So I just put it in chat. grc.start.me is our resources page, and there's probably stuff in there about third party. There's a ton of information. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, I've just been doing the OJT. I've just been doing it so long, so I just kind of split it up and from management to technical and just kind of working my way through it. The cool thing is most of the bigger companies are in AWS and Azure, and my man showed the share responsibility matrix that kind of goes a long way to getting you started. You're not done, like he said, but it gets you started.
Yeah, that'll help you if you know what you're looking for. You hit the high points, and what you can rely on them. That's great. But we talked about and this maybe you'll save this for your next class, but you kind of briefly touched on it. But the SLAs and the MSAs as they come along like that, you're going to be as specific as possible as you can, as they'll allow you, because AWS and Microsoft, they're going to allow you to touch jack.
That's not true. That's not true.
You got to be a big baller.
You got to spend $5 million. You got to spend $5 million.
Okay, let me start.
You got to spend $5 million.
If any of us are working for a company that's going to spend $5 million with Microsoft, I don't know what you buy for $5 million with Microsoft, but I mean that's a lot of licenses. That's a lot of Office 365.
Let me tell you what it was. I work for consulting. Their consulting dollar rate is crazy. Okay. They were doing a lift, ship, migrate. Most of it was consulting service. Their junior people was like $250 an hour. I'm like, this dude just graduated. How the hell y'all charging $250 an hour? Man, they junior people. And
that person only made $50 an hour.
They didn't make that much, man.
No, less than that.
They probably made 40, 45 and was happy. But you get their practice manager. Their practice manager, no shit, was like $400 an hour. I was like, that's crazy, man.
That's my next goal. Well, we have a position in the meantime called like technical services manager.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, but I don't want to get pigeonholed. You know, I think everybody should always be trying to better themselves, one way or the other. So I got a couple of phrases I'm gonna throw at you, PBO. Let me know if you like them, because I've been putting them in my journal and everything.
As long as they're not about the tide.
No, not about the tide. Yeah. High tide rises all ships. I think I said it. Anyways,
I hate that.
ABL, always be learning.
I like that one.
ABR, always be ready.
I love that one. So, long story short, Chris texted me. He's like, "Are you ready for the thing?" I think I texted him back. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. You have to get ready if you stay ready. That's why you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So. Well, go ahead and keep going. So that's why I was joking with it. I said, I'm already 100% ready. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. Now, shout out to the real Billaba. He said they spent $3 million moving from Azure to Epic. Oh, shout out to Epic. We were moving
from Epic to Azure.
Oh, yeah, moved. Okay. Yeah, Epic. Yeah, because I was looking. My daughter-in-law, she does health, so I was actually looking at system security for Epic Health System, because you can run it on AWS. I was actually going to apply a job to do security for an Epic system. So it's funny they mentioned Epic. So I seen it once again. Epic has an AWS tenant you can run for health.
But that ain't $5 million, so you still ain't touching that MSA.
Facts. But that's maybe they got a better deal. The company I work for, they was like, you got to spend $5 million. I was like, shit. I'm like, really?
Oh, He said that wasn't him. There's a case study on the Microsoft
Oh,
website.
okay, yeah. So, but yeah, so it's amazing when you deal with those big companies and you moving, and a real move. People be spending $10 million. I was like, that's crazy for me. I can't even comprehend that many resources for that much money.
Does that stand for Pacific Northwest, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Okay. I'm guessing.
I was just looking over that part. I have no idea.
She said lived in.
Look, I love that you can do that. I mean, I can play coy and try to be smart when at first when that crypto thing came out that Miss Burgess put, I wasn't paying attention to what it said either. I mean, I kind of looked at it like, oh. But then when he got in, like PBL was like, yeah, that's the. I said, oh yeah, I got you. Okay, I got you now. But thanks, Space Tacos. But yeah, I think that's very interesting that you can look through those things and move. My brain just stops right there and says, figure it out.
Well, most of the time I don't read every single word anyways, which can get me in tons of trouble.
Facts. I'm right there with you.
But yeah, most of the time I'm just glancing at stuff anyways and just getting a high level.
B-Dub, shut it on down. I gotta go do a little work. I gotta work too. I got about another hour of work I need to get done.
Well, I did forget to mention the badges at the beginning. So if you didn't grab your badge, I'm gonna say last call for your badge tonight to get access to our secret badge hunters channel and some golden finds.
Cool.
So go get your badges in Discord. I posted I guess the robot's thinking.
Do me one favor. I think you did it. Put my channel up there for me, B-Dubs. Did you pound me? That didn't sound right. That's how. Can you put my channel up? I gotta get it together, man. I'm being HR and shit.
We're gonna have to edit this video now, PBO.
I'm sorry. I apologize. PBO's old. But yeah, can you give me the exclamation point? Come check me out. I appreciate everybody for joining us. Shout out to Study GRC for letting me present. I guess they should thank me. I think somebody was missing, so they needed a spot. But it's all good. Shout out to them. So I really enjoyed it. Shout out to my man Dave for coming up. Definitely giving me some good questions and assisting me. Once again, I kind of live in that federal space. The clients I work do kind of federal work, so I kind of get siloed into that particular domain. And there's way more domains in the private sector. So I thought that was a nice balance input. Once again, I appreciate everybody for joining us, and I'll let B-Dub shut it on down so PBO can finish his job so he don't get fired today.
Man, I always forget how to get these damn badges, I swear.
So yeah, just post GRC Mafia like I did. Brexy just did it in the live chat in Discord.
See, I was doing it in the community. That's why I messed up. Thank you so much. See?
It does not work in any other channel, only the live chat channel. So you'll see Brexy's and you'll get a green check mark when it works properly.
There it is. Bada bing, bada boom.
There we go. Get those badges. Any final words, David?
No, thank you again too. Yeah, PBO. These are always interesting talks, and I love picking your brain. Everybody, I don't care if you're younger than me or older than me. You know, everybody's got something to share. Even if you don't know, you probably still have something. So I just always want everybody to keep on reaching and never give up, and always be learning, always be ready.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, even an old guy learning different stuff. Because like I said, I haven't touched anything on quantum. If I fifths, I'm good. I'll let the government worry about that. If I fifths 140-3, I'm good. I'm going to let them worry about the quantum part for that. So
I'm trying to convince my 13-year-old to learn quantum now. Start young, right?
Network Chuck, I think, has got a video. Learn quantum now.
Well, I mean, now while he's young, so that he can be learning it now, and then know all about quantum later.
No, that's true.
There's some great videos out there.
Well, kids just soak stuff up so easily.
That too, real Bilbo AI as well. Yes.
That's a good point.
Prompt engineering. You'll get better results if you ask better questions. But you know what's funny about that? That's in life. That's not just AI.
Facts.
Better.
No, that's true. Yeah. No, that's true.
Well, there you go. That's it. Sorry. Thank you. I was long-winded.
I like ending on that, though, asking better questions, because, yeah, I mean, even in our Discord or whatever, if you aren't very specific in your questions, you may not get the response that you're looking for. And we're always happy to help. So drop your questions anytime, but definitely it's all about how you phrase things. But words are hard. It's always my saying.
It's not always about, and unfortunately, like, just because it comes through as a message, you might not get the tone. So you got to think about that when you're writing that message. So sometimes people call me old for the LOL, but that LOL just means like, I'm not being serious, but I'm kind of, but boom, or an emoji or something. But at the end of the day, writing better. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. I heard something about like millennials put LOL at the end of every message or something. And then I started noticing that I do that quite a bit, but yeah, it's all about that tone of the message. Like, LOL, haha, not serious here.
Well, y'all have a fantastic evening.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time. GRC Mafia.